Hi, my name is Steffen Mirsky, and I'm the Evaluation and Trials Manager at Seed Savers Exchange. Today I'm going to take you on a tour of what we call the Evaluation Garden. Just a little bit about the evaluation program. The main purpose of the program is to collect data on the physical characteristics of the varieties in our collection. We do that to write profiles of these varieties, which we publish on the Exchange and through our annual yearbook. We take notes on things like the purity of varieties, make sure that they're true to type, and we also look for outstanding varieties in our collection. And if we discover any outstanding varieties, we recommend those for possible inclusion in our seed catalog. Another thing I coordinate is our Citizen Science Corps program, where we have participants around the country and even around the world growing varieties from our collection to trial them in their own gardens and farms and send us feedback on the performance of those varieties, which we then collect and use to inform our own decisions about which varieties from the collection to introduce into the catalog. This is what we call the evaluation garden, and it's just one of several gardens around the farm where we grow crops specifically for evaluation. These are being documented and photographed, and we're doing taste tests on all the varieties here. So I'm just going to take you through this garden and highlight some of the more interesting crops and varieties growing in it. So the first crop on the tour is called Amaranth, and this here is Amaranth. This particular variety is called Tunisian, and it came to us from a man named William Moyes Weaver, who is an author and a food historian. And he collected this variety in France on his travels there, but originally it came from northern Africa, where it was used for dyeing. So its red stems were used for dyeing. And in front of the Amaranth here, we have a couple of varieties of celery. This one here is called Red, and it's a historic U.S. commercial variety, and its name refers to its dark purple-red petioles, or stalks, you can see there. This other variety of celery here is called Utah number 15, and this is a strain of the original Utah celery, which was released in the United States in the 1920s. There's a more modern strain of the Utah celery, which is called Tall Utah, and that is the most common commercial variety today. It's the one you're most likely to find in supermarkets. If we keep going this way, you'll see this crop called tepary bean. And tepary beans are native to the desert southwest of the United States. And it's cultivated for its dry beans. It's kind of a sprawling, very bushy plant, and they put on small pods. This variety is called light brown seeded, and it actually comes from a couple of Native American tribes from the desert southwest. It's very well adapted to hot, dry conditions, and it's a very reliable producer. So you can actually find tepary beans growing wild in the southwest U.S. Over here, this tall crop is sorghum, and this variety is called Sugar Drip. It's actually a new introduction into our seed catalog. So Sugar Drip was donated to us by Wayne Hayes of Kentucky, and he and his family have been growing this variety of sorghum for 3 generations for syrup production on their farm. Wayne also donated another variety of sorghum to our collection in 2015 called Williams, and he and his family also made sorghum syrup from Williams. When he donated those varieties to us, he said that Williams actually produces a higher volume of syrup per acre, whereas Sugar Drip has a better flavor. So we're actually growing Sugar Drip on a larger scale somewhere else on the farm this year, and our plan is to harvest it and press it for the sap and boil it down for syrup. So we hope to record that and post it onto our social media. Over here we have a crop called safflower, and this variety is called Lorenzo Tracini Heirloom safflower. And it came to the United States with Lorenzo Tracini in the late 1800s from Italy, northern Italy, close to the Swiss border. And he brought this variety over and settled in the Genoa, Wisconsin area. And his family continues to grow this variety today. And it's actually used as a saffron substitute. So the threads of the fresh flowers are actually harvested and then added to dishes to give them color. And this family actually has an annual 4th of July picnic where they use this variety to make a risotto dish, which is a traditional dish in northern Italy. So we're actually growing this variety for production on the farm this year and saving seeds, and we're hoping to introduce it into our catalog in the near future. Over here we have 2 different varieties of tobacco. This one here is called Cash, and it's an early 1900s variety from the northeastern part of the US, and it's a smoking tobacco. So this other variety back here is called Connecticut Burley, and it's also an early 1900s smoking tobacco from the northeastern part of the US. And the donor actually said in his letter that this variety was grown for money making and money saving. So here is a very tall variety of soybean called Black Hawk. And this variety was developed and released by the Iowa Agricultural Experiment Station, which is part of Iowa State University. And it was commercially released in the 1940s. Over here we have 4 beds that are dedicated to varieties that are new introductions into the 2020 seed catalog. So there's a couple of varieties in here that I want to point out. This variety of kale right here is called Marrow Stem, and it's a historic variety that comes from Europe. As you can see, the name comes from the very enlarged stems, and traditionally this variety was grown as fodder for livestock. It's said that the stems are, the milk in the stems is highly nutritious for livestock. And the leaves are actually edible as well, especially the young leaves on top. They're really good for people to eat. So this variety can actually grow quite tall, 6 feet, even up to 10 feet. Over here we have a variety of Swiss chard called Gold Silver Beet, and it's actually one of the 5 varieties that makes up the blend called 5-color silver beet or rainbow chard. So rainbow chard is not actually a single variety, it's actually a blend of 5 different varieties, and each of those 5 varieties have to be maintained separately, and then the seeds of those 5 varieties are combined in the seed packets to give you rainbow chard. And this is one of those 5 varieties, and it's got these beautiful golden orange stalks. So in this part of the garden, we're featuring a planting technique called the 3 Sisters method. And this is a traditional Native American planting technique. The 3 sisters are corn, beans, and squash. And the idea is that those 3 crops work really well together. So the corn provides the support for the beans to climb on. The beans, as a legume, fix nitrogen and provide some of the fertility for the corn. And then the squash acts as ground cover to suppress any weeds. And it can also inhibit predators from eating the corn. We have 3 Native American varieties here that we're featuring. The corn is a variety called Cherokee White Eagle. This is a variety that was developed by a Cherokee corn elder named Carl Barnes from Oklahoma. And he developed this variety from traditional Cherokee varieties. And it's named that way because some of the kernels actually have a white eagle pattern on them. This bean that's climbing up the corn is called Nanticoke Indian, and it's from the Nanticoke tribe of what today is the Chesapeake Bay region. And the squash variety is called Choctaw sweet potato, and this is a family heirloom that came to us from a family in Mississippi. And the man who donated it, his great-grandmother was a full-blood Choctaw, and she married an Englishman, and she had told our donor that this is the traditional variety that the Choctaw and Creek nations grew in Alabama and Mississippi before the white settlers arrived. So now we're going to take a walk through our sunflower tunnel. And in this part of the garden, we are showcasing the varieties that we're trialing through our community science program called ADAPT. So through ADAPT, we have over 100 participants throughout the country and actually around the world, growing varieties from our collection and trialing them in their own gardens and farms. And they're collecting feedback on the performance of these varieties and sending us that feedback, which helps inform us about which varieties we want to introduce into our catalog from our collection. So we're actually offering 6 different trials this year, and in this part of the garden we have 3 of those trials. In the first row here we have our hot peppers, and there are 6 varieties of hot peppers that we're trialing. In the row behind these are our sweet peppers, and we have 8 varieties of those. And then behind the sweet peppers are our beefsteak tomatoes, and we have 8 varieties of beefsteak tomatoes. So this particular variety here is called Italian Heirloom, and this is our control variety for the trial. It's actually in our catalog already, and it's been a good seller for us. It actually won the tomato tasting contest that we host here on the farm. We know it sells well, and we kind of measure the other varieties in the trial up against this one. As you can see, it's early maturing. It's quite productive. It does have a bit of disease, but these are the kind of traits that we ask our participants to collect and report back to us. So this variety is called Baker Family Heirloom. It came to us from a donor in Oklahoma who received it from somebody else through a seed swap through the National Gardening Association. You can see it's a very vigorous tomato. It's not quite as early maturing. They don't have any mature fruit yet, but it seems to be very disease resistant. There isn't a speck of disease on any of the leaves yet. This variety, Pop's Holy Land, came to us from a donor in Ohio, Phil Costeno, who's also known as Pop. And he got the seeds of this variety from a stonemason who he hired to do some work on his front steps. And this variety also has very large fruit, fairly early maturing, has a little bit of disease, but it's a pretty vigorous variety as well. This one is New Paltz Italian. It came from Italy, and again, it's a vigorous variety. It's just starting to ripen some fruit, and it seems to be pretty disease resistant too. Maiden's Gold is another variety in the trial, and this one came to us from a man named Ted Maiden, and he was in the Air Force for almost his entire career. He actually grew this variety in all the places that he lived, on all the bases that he was stationed. But towards the end of his career, he lost the seeds of this variety. And after 22 years, he rediscovered the seeds in an old photo album. And he planted all the seeds, but only one germinated. And he was able to harvest over 100 seeds from that one plant. So we still have the variety today. And this is a big orange beefsteak tomato. It's beautiful, and the flavor is outstanding. It's just starting to ripen its fruit. Also a vigorous variety. So we're looking forward to getting feedback from our ADAPT participants around the country this fall, and seeing how those participants think these varieties measure up. That's a brief tour of what we have growing in the evaluation garden this year. The gardens are open, so you can come visit us and see it for yourself. But I hope you enjoyed the tour, and thank you so much for watching, and enjoy your virtual conference.